Once upon a time, in a quaint little town called Dayton, there lived two brothers named Orville and Wilbur Wright. They were no ordinary brothers. They were dreamers and inventors with a shared passion for one of the most magical ideas of all, flying like a bird. From a young age, Orville and Wilbur were fascinated by the thought of soaring through the skies. They would spend hours watching the birds glide gracefully, imagining what it would be like to join them in the heavens. Their father, Milton Wright, encouraged their dreams, often bringing home little toys and books about flying machines. One sunny morning, as the birds chirped merrily, Orville looked out of their small workshop window and said, "Wilbur, do you think we'll ever be able to fly like those birds?" Wilbur, always the thoughtful one, replied, "I believe we can, Orville. We just need to understand how the birds do it and then build a machine that can do the same." The brothers spent countless hours in their workshop, surrounded by tools, pieces of wood, and metal parts. They read every book they could find about flight and studied the way birds move their wings. They experimented with kites and small gliders, learning from each attempt, even the ones that didn't work. One evening, after a long day of work, the brothers sat under a tree, watching the stars twinkle above. Orville, with a spark in his eyes, said, "Wilbur, I've been thinking, what if we create a glider that can be controlled by the pilot, just like a bird uses its wings and tail to steer?" Wilbur nodded thoughtfully. "That's a brilliant idea, Orville. We need to design wings that can twist and turn to keep the balance, just like the birds do." The next day, they began working on their new design. They built a large glider with wings that could twist and turn. They decided to test it on the sandy dunes of Kitty Hawk, a place known for its strong winds and soft landings. "Orville, are you ready to test our new glider?" Wilbur asked, excitement and a hint of nervousness in his voice. Orville grinned. "I've never been more ready, Wilbur. Let's do this." They packed their glider and set off for Kitty Hawk, where they were greeted by curious locals who had heard about the brothers' experiments. Among them was a little girl named Emily, who was fascinated by the idea of flying. "Mr. Orville, Mr. Wilbur, can I watch you fly?" Emily asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "Of course, Emily," Orville said with a smile. "Maybe one day you'll be flying too." As they prepared for their test flight, the brothers made sure everything was in place. Orville climbed into the glider while Wilbur held it steady. "Ready, Orville?" Wilbur called out. "Ready," Orville shouted back. With a push, the glider caught the wind and lifted off the ground. For a few glorious moments, Orville was soaring above the sand dunes, feeling the wind in his face and the thrill of flight. But then the glider wobbled and came down gently on the sand. Wilbur rushed to Orville's side. "Are you okay, Orville?" Orville stood up, brushing off the sand, and laughed. "I'm more than okay, Wilbur. We flew. We actually flew." Emily clapped her hands, cheering. "You did it. You really did it." The brothers knew they still had much to learn, but their spirits were higher than ever. They returned to Dayton with a renewed determination to build a powered flying machine. As the sun set on Kitty Hawk, casting a golden glow over the dunes, Orville and Wilbur sat together, dreaming of the day when they would not only glide, but truly fly. "Wilbur, do you think we'll ever build a machine that can fly on its own?" Orville asked. Wilbur smiled. "I believe we can, Orville. We just need to keep trying and never give up." And so, with dreams of flight filling their hearts, the Wright brothers continued their journey, knowing that one day, their dreams would take them higher than they ever imagined. The Wright brothers returned to Dayton, their minds buzzing with new ideas and improvements for their flying machine. They were determined to build a powered aircraft that could stay in the air longer and fly higher than any glider. They worked tirelessly in their workshop, designing, building, and testing different engines and propellers. One crisp autumn morning, Orville excitedly called out to Wilbur, "Wilbur, I think I've found the perfect engine for our flyer. It's lightweight and powerful enough to keep us in the air." Wilbur, who had been meticulously crafting a new set of propellers, looked up and smiled. "That's wonderful, Orville. Let's test it out and see how it performs." They mounted the engine onto their flyer and attached the newly designed propellers. The brothers decided to return to Kitty Hawk, where the strong winds and open spaces were perfect for their experiments. As they prepared for their journey, their father Milton offered some wise words. Remember, my sons, perseverance and patience are the keys to success. Keep your spirits high, and you will achieve your dream. The brothers nodded, filled with renewed determination. They packed their flyer and set off for Kitty Hawk once more, where the locals, including little Emily, eagerly awaited their return. Mr. Orville, Mr. Wilbur, are you going to fly again? Emily asked, her eyes shining with excitement. Yes, Emily, Orville replied with a smile. This time we hope to stay in the air even longer. They set up their flyer on the sandy dunes, making sure everything was in place. The engine roared to life and the propellers spun rapidly. Orville climbed into the pilot's seat while Wilbur held the flyer steady. Are you ready, Orville? Wilbur called out. Ready, Orville shouted back, his heart pounding with anticipation. With a final push, the flyer moved down the makeshift runway and lifted off the ground. This time, the engine hummed steadily and the flyer soared higher and higher. Orville felt the thrill of true flight as he guided the machine through the air. Wilbur, we're flying! We're really flying, Orville exclaimed, his voice filled with joy. Wilbur watched in awe as his brother circled above, the flyer gliding gracefully through the sky. The locals cheered, and Emily jumped up and down, clapping her hands in delight. Look at Mr. Orville! He's flying like a bird, Emily exclaimed. After what felt like a magical eternity, Orville gently brought the flyer back down to the ground. He climbed out of the pilot's seat, his face beaming with pride. We did it, Wilbur. We really did it, Orville said, embracing his brother. Wilbur smiled, his eyes glistening with tears of happiness. Yes, Orville, we made history today. The news of their successful flight spread quickly, and people from far and wide came to see the Wright brothers and their incredible flying machine. Reporters, scientists, and curious onlookers all marveled at the brothers' achievement. One day, as the brothers were preparing for another flight, Emily approached them with a question. Mr. Orville, Mr. Wilbur, what's next? Are you going to keep flying? Orville knelt down to Emily's level and said, Yes, Emily, we're going to keep improving our flyer and share our knowledge with the world. One day, people everywhere will be able to fly. Wilbur added, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be flying too, Emily. The brothers continued their work, refining their designs and making new discoveries. Their dream of flight had become a reality, and they knew that the skies were no longer the limit, but just the beginning. As the sun set over Kitty Hawk, casting a warm glow over the dunes, Orville and Wilbur stood side by side, gazing up at the sky. They had achieved what once seemed impossible, and their journey had only just begun. Wilbur, do you think there will be a day when flying becomes as common as riding a bicycle? Orville asked. Wilbur smiled, his eyes full of hope. I believe so, Orville. And when that day comes, we'll know that our dreams helped make it possible. And so, the Wright brothers' legacy took flight, inspiring generations to reach for the skies and beyond, proving that with perseverance, patience, and a little bit of magic, anything is possible.